Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Budgie Talk with Neil. And today we have Andy Cooke, all the way from the Emerald Isles of Ireland. And thank you very much, Andy, for taking part.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so Andy, you and your wife sent me a lovely slideshow, and we'll just go through this, and we can chat as we go, as they say.
Okay.
So. Yeah, so obviously, tell us a little bit about your history and in birds, if you would.
Okay. This year, actually, in September, will be my 50th year keeping birds.
Wow.
Started off with exhibition cluster canaries, and then progressed into quite a lot of foreign birds as well, and moved into what I wanted, which was exhibition budgies. So I started shooting exhibition budgies around 85, 86, and right through until I was in intermediate section and on the subsidiary panel for the judges panel. And then took a break because my father, he wanted some help with the pigeons. So I thought, well, I'll take a break and work with these. And to be honest, they really only lasted about 6 weeks with the workload. And I kept them on for quite a while then. But I always wanted to come back to exhibition budgies. At one point, I was going to come back around 2000, 2018, 19, 20, sort of those sort of times. But I was watching a lot of the birds online, and I didn't really like the direction they were going, and I sort of held off a bit. But what had actually happened was I had spotted my favorite color was light green, so I had noticed online after Adrian Lovac had won at the club show, and I thought that's the kind of bird I want. So I sort of watched his results for around 2 years. Never spoke to the guy, nothing. And then out of the blue, I had a message from him that he had been watching my results with the racing pigeons and had said that he would like to get some. But when I told him I'd been watching his and I was coming back into exhibition budgeriggers, then it just kicked off from there really, and he has been, an on my shoulder mentor since then.
Yeah. It's amazing how small things like that just happen,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You couldn't have planned that in any way, shape, or form, could you?
Not a chance, and it was one of those for me meant to be type things, I think, because he has just, he took me with his own birds and then took me to Alan Marchant, and with him and Alan sort of just guiding me to get back into this. To be honest, with Alan's pedigree in him as well as Adrian's, I couldn't have done any better.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just the lineup of birds in that picture is just phenomenal.
Well, those
It
are
really
actually
is.
all the birds in that picture, except for the grey-green cock beside the spangled. He was bred. I bought him as a barhead at Adrian's at 9 weeks old.
Wow.
And he went on to win. I showed him 7 times at the 7 Northern Ireland shows in my first year as a beginner, because we could do that as a beginner,
Yep.
showing any age that we didn't breed. And I showed him 7 times and he won 7 best in shows.
Wow.
The other birds there, the pied hen, the grey-green cock, the cinnamon hen, the grey-green hen, and the spangled hen, are all best in show winners.
Oh, not surprised.
So they are. In
Yeah.
fact, in the center there, the cinnamon hen and the grey-green hen, I bred these were all bred in my first year, and I wanted to take those 2 hens to the club show, but because of the Brexit restrictions, it prevented me doing that. Which was very, very disappointing with those 2 hens in particular. But both of them went on to win, best in shows. They've all won best breeder in show and best in show.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just in my sort of first and second year as a beginner back in. So
yeah. So I see there you're based entirely on the bloodlines of Alan.
Yes.
And that's so.
Yeah, direct direct from him, and then obviously Adrian Novak was entirely Alan Marchant as well.
Yeah, yeah. And you've never tried anything else, never brought anything else in?
No,
Wow.
I think it's a combination of the lack of experience in working with a European style bird,
Yeah.
as well as some of them would just be just slightly over the top for me, as in my direction would be I like the finer feathered stylish bird,
Yeah.
you know. But
Yeah.
again, I think a lack of just a complete lack of experience, working with those type of birds, yeah,
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
honest.
So this is a bird room.
Yeah, it's 20 foot by 8, and it's made of that's 32 mil log,
Mm.
and it's all insulated and then completely done the inside with PVC. It's self built. That's the inside. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
actually,
so,
the
yeah.
trolley I've taken away now because I've replaced it with 6 of those seed bins, which is much better for me.
Oh, right.
But
So where do you keep the birds in the stock cages or?
yeah, and those flights are around 7 foot by 2.5 feet, and then 3.5 feet high each one. So the whole unit there is actually it's roughly 7 foot by 7 foot.
Yeah.
I have two of those, one at either end,
Ah, right. Okay.
and then
Yeah.
those are the Molinari wire cages, Italian cages.
Yes, I keep looking at those, I must admit.
Very,
But
very excellent quality. Absolute.
yeah,
Mine are 3 year old now, and you think you just bought them 3 months ago.
yeah, yeah. Do you tend to take them outside and jet wash them off, or?
Yeah, I can. They don't really need much attention in the cages, but what I do, they're actually on the way they're affixed to the wall. I can bring them down. They're solid to the wall. They don't move. The kind of clips that I use, I sort of made them with a 2 inch washer to cover the
Yeah,
wires to hold them back. But the only issue is and I need to take them down once or twice a year to clean the plastic, the PVC behind them.
yeah,
But
yeah. Because I noticed you got sort of long brackets underneath. Are they just sort of your normal sort of shelf
yeah, just the
brackets?
normal
Yeah,
shelf brackets, and they fit perfectly on them.
yeah,
It was just really to take the weight, because
yeah,
whenever I hang a nest box on the front end, they're quite heavy. They would tip forward. So that's
yeah,
why I have the clips that go into those bracket rails as well. And
yeah.
I can put two hands in those. You couldn't pull them off the wall.
No, it's good. Yeah, last thing you want is to come in the morning and there's cages on the floor.
Oh no.
But yeah,
And bad enough sometimes, the way you see it in the picture, they're clean like that. I'm very, very particular about that. But I've had the odd occasion where I've forgotten to lock the flight door and come back out, and
yeah, we're all guilty of that, I think.
yeah, yeah, that's the view from the other side. So
Yeah,
that's quite a very, very powerful extractor fan in
yeah,
there.
yeah. I've got one now, and I think I could probably get away with another one. It's just
Yeah,
that settling dust, isn't it?
yeah. I actually my bedroom would be quite dust free because of that. That's a 10 inch Power Star fan,
Yeah.
and it's set at its lowest point. And
Wow.
whenever I was testing that out, 20 feet away on the framework of the other wall facing it, there were some polystyrene balls from the insulation, and it was pulling them across the floor.
Goodness me.
So
Yeah,
it's
that is good.
the intake comes from the windows for the fresh
Yeah.
air intake to follow through.
Do you tend to run a closed shop in the winter, or do you always have windows open?
I I would have the windows just maybe 2 inches open right up until sort of end of November.
Yeah.
Once it starts dipping a wee bit, then I close them. I change my fan onto a 15-minute blow for every 2 hours. Whereas in the summer, the windows are wide open and the fan would come on in 15 minutes on every hour.
Yeah. 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 Brilliant.
That's
Okay.
that's him. That's the boy I bought him from Adrian. And when I started as a barhead at 9 weeks, and that's what he turned out like.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, just last week I lost him.
Oh, that's yes. I think you put a post up, didn't you?
Yeah, what a
Yeah.
what a bird.
Yeah. And I mean, are we going to see chicks from him as we go through the talk, or
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
no, indeed. That's his daughter.
Ah, right. Very similar in sort of stance, aren't they?
Yeah,
Very much the deportment.
yeah, just absolute stylish right through.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's his daughter.
So so we'll start these questions that I really want to see if we can extract from you. Why why are those so different? What was the cockbird paired to that make would say to bring those two very different hens together?
Those two hens are actually nest sisters from the same mother and father.
Yeah,
The mother was an opaline grey-green hen of Allen's, and again I got it as a barhead, and she dropped her flights, um, and then they came back. They came back partially. Uh, she was very, very thick-headed, thick neck, lots and lots of back skull and massive spots because I felt that's what he needed.
yeah. So that has ended up in that bird, but not so much that
Yeah,
one.
no.
Yeah.
And there's a son in one of those pictures as well. He didn't get the spot either.
All right. Yeah. Um. Okay. So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? You know, there is definitely time and a place to look at previous parents, isn't it? Like, I don't want to start chatting about Harry Hockaday's way, but the cock to cock pairing that he talks about, you know, works for him. I've
Yeah,
tried it, it hasn't worked for me, but perhaps my birds aren't at that level yet. But definitely parentage, looking at records. And I think what I say to novices is always get the a picture of the parents in your mind at least, or on your phone, so
yeah,
you can take that back to your shed and say, right, okay, what looks like that cock, what do I want to achieve?
yeah. I I find I would spend a bit of time when I because it's quite a small stud. When I have the cockbird in, I put him in a show cage or in the I have a triple training cage. I put him in the middle, and then when I narrow it down to a couple of hens that I'd like him to go to, I put them together and almost try and visualize a fusion of between the two.
Yeah,
You know, instantly I'll know what the cockbird needs.
yeah,
So the hen will obviously have to excel in that, but without dropping off on any of the other qualities.
yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, to me, I mean that hen, you could almost put that to any cock bird, I think,
Yeah,
and see an improvement, wouldn't you?
yeah,
You know, um, but with this hen, you almost want a cock bird that looks like the sister to give
yeah,
that extra width. It is a balancing act, and I think that's where I think in this hobby we don't have these conversations that teach some of these novices on pairing up,
yeah,
and looking at what does that bird need, because there's no way that hen is going to be narrow in the face,
yeah.
but
So
she's so wide behind the eye, isn't she?
yes,
You know.
definitely.
Okay, so let's move on to the Spangle hen.
Well, the father of the Spangle hen you're looking at now has a phenomenal frontal blue. Not as wide, but a phenomenal frontal blue. And I felt that's what the grey green hen needed. She had plenty of width, but I felt she needed more forward.
Yeah,
So that's the reason that, so I paired her, that Spangled Hen's father to her.
Right.
And then the nest brother from the Grey Green Hen paired to this Spangled Hen, where I'm trying to
Right.
create that family.
Yeah. Oh,
And that's a Grey Green Pied Hen. And her mother was another Grey Green Hen sister to the previous one you were looking at there.
right. Yeah.
So again, just trying to, the thing that I learned very quickly that whenever I first went to Alan's, that Adrian had said to watch out for a grey green cock and a grey green spangled cock. They were two brothers, and Alan felt that he said that he felt that they were the best two birds he bred in 19. And then in 2020, there's the sons from the chicks from those two particular cocks were four young birds each from those were the best in 2020. So I thought this is the line to work with.
Yeah.
So that, and I've been quite fortunate. I have all Alan Martin's breeding records going back to 2014. I have them here, and I, I was able to trace everything that the birds that I wanted then that were part of that family.
Yeah.
So that's why so this those spangles, the spangle and the grey green being brothers, then I have them down through. This is where I can now add the pied family as an outcross, but they're from the same bloodline.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I've also tried to do as well, is now I'm going back to breeders looking for relations to the same line, you
Yeah,
know, especially my wone birds, I mean, I've paired a pied cockbird to one of my hens this year, and uh, David's very honest with me, and he didn't like the hen. And there's a cinnamon sky blue hen in the nest box at the moment that may change his mind.
yeah,
And it's just, working with, and I knew that the hens line went back to my own birds. So, even though it was probably 3 years before, um, and they may have collected, there is a pied chick, and it's rubbish. That's just the way it goes.
yeah.
They're still quite young, so I might eat my words, but from what I can see at the moment.
Might
But
surprise you.
yeah, yeah. But the other thing I quite like, what I love with your birds is you've got mask feathers. So the I'm pointing and you won't be able to see me, but the actual yellow feather, then the spot.
Yeah,
There are so many people that say, "Oh, well, my bird's got a deep mask," and it's not. It's the long spot feather,
yeah,
and the mask is actually up round the cere. So that's something I'm trying to develop myself. I think this year's probably one of my, or no, next year will be a year where I may not fill all my show cage or shut my breeding cages, but it will be the best, you know, rather than, I think so anyway.
yeah. Yeah, that's
So
another. So again, his father would be another brother of the Grey Green. So he would that this cock here in particular, he would be a cousin. So he's a result of the Grey Green paired into the Pied family.
right,
So his mother was a sister of the Pied cock that bred the previous Pied hen.
yeah,
So I'm trying to bring them all around, back in around again.
yeah, and that's a very different bird to the others we've seen, isn't it? I mean, a
Yeah.
lot more feather in the body over the perch. So I'm assuming, maybe wrong, that would be a more of a stock bird to you than a show bird.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was him in 22. Now he's a much heavier. It, he, as Adrian had said to me, when I put him in a breeding cage, he would go in a boy and come out a man. He's completely changed. He's stronger. He
yeah,
just sits better. More, just
yeah,
definitely more mature.
yeah. Super mask as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting closer to round spots too.
Yeah. 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 But again, people don't sort of think about it, but you need a wide feather to put a big round spot on.
Yeah,
You can't have a narrow little feather with a round, well, you can, but it's a pinprick, you know.
yeah.
So,
So that she would be a half sister to the previous Spangle Hen.
right. And was that same father or same
Yeah,
mother?
same father,
Yeah.
same father. So she's actually paired at the minute to one of the original 2020 grey green cocks that Alan bred in that year from the grey green cock that was brother to the grey green spangle.
Yeah.
And he has the width of face would cover almost 4 bars of a show cage.
Yeah. I remember watching that video with Alan, and they had a grey cock, didn't they, called 5 bars?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the widest thing I think I've ever seen. Phenomenal.
The grey green cock that she's paired to and his brothers are all the same 3, 4 bars of a cage they would fill across the top.
Brilliant. Yeah. I got one sky cock that comes to close to probably 4, but not quite. Yeah. Yeah. So talk us through the birds again.
So these birds now are just about just being. In fact, the grey green cock sitting on the dish, he's actually now paired to the Spangle hen that won best in show
All right.
because I'm trying to double up on that head quality, and he is quite a poor spot.
Yeah.
But the Spangles in that family they carry quite a good spot. So
Yeah.
the other grey green cock there, he is a son of the 7 times best in show cock, and he is a brother to the cinnamon hen and the grey green hen. And the opaline grey green hen there beside him is his daughter.
Right.
And
Phenomenal mask.
the grey hen is uh, from a pair of Allens. I have 2 hens, 2 normal grey hens, 2 normal grey cocks, and 2 normal cinnamon hens. Very, very similar.
Yeah.
So I've just paired one of them up, and that hen in the picture there, I'm just waiting. She's just not in condition yet, so she's not. But I have the the original Spangled cock's going to go to her,
Yeah.
just because, as I said, he has lots and lots of forward blow, but he needs more width across the top.
Yeah. I mean, have you got close to your ideal bird yet?
The cockbird on the top left of my screen, that when you see him in a showcase is absolutely phenomenal. And
Yeah.
all he needs is the mask and spots fixed.
Yeah.
Um, his his head just it's a fantastic shape of a head rather than just being straight across. It's like a big yellow ball when he puts it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's only 7 months old there at the minute, but he has just hatched his first chick
Wow.
to the Spangle hen.
That's good. Yeah. Very good.
And these are some more homebreds. The grey greens there would be brothers. The grey spangle is actually another one off the grey green spangle cock. So that's what I can get whenever I put him to a hen that has slightly more width.
Yeah. Yeah.
The light green opaline hen, I have him to absolutely stunning, very silky, soft, feathered grey green cockbird who just needed a wee bit more punch, I think. And I thought that was the right hen for him.
Yeah. Yeah. She looks, got that width, the solidness behind the eye.
Yeah, she has.
Yeah. Very nice.
Very protective hen. I have 3 cuts on my hand just at the minute from putting a ring on one of her chicks.
I've got a grey hen this year, box 13, funnily enough, and she's the devil. She
Yeah,
really is.
that one,
Fortunately,
That one's the same, her and her sisters.
Yeah, but a tremendous mother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic.
tremendous. And mine, I think I think mine grey hen's only just turned a year old. She was ready to go quite early. So
Yeah, that's a 2023 or 2023 hen as well.
yeah,
In fact, all four of those birds are all 2023.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm getting closer to the sort of the directional type feather is what I'm after.
yeah, yeah. I mean, going back to that, I mean, that's the grey hen at the top there is just, you know, directional feather and blow. That's a real that's a combination I quite like.
Yeah, these are all homebred birds. So these are some of the cocks then I have, and hens I have just at stock now. There are three of those paired up just at the minute. The opaline grey green cock was a barhead, and when Adrian was finishing up, I saw him in a cage, and he was off one of the original grey greens to a daughter of the original spangles, and I thought, well, he has to come with me because obviously the directional, the mask, the spot.
Yeah,
So I paired him this year to a daughter of just quite a fine, feminine looking daughter of the Spangle Cock, and their sister to the previous young Spangle hen that had won best in show. Now she's just a really fine, just a nice hen, lovely feather. And just in the minute, at the minute in the nest, they have three young chicks in the nest at the minute. And one of them is an opaline cinnamon light green, and it's probably going to be the best bird I've ever bred.
wow.
It's
Fingers
spotless
crossed.
clean. It's going to have a mask and spots like him and a face like him, basically, but it's an opaline light green hen.
Yeah,
So it's the oldest one. The other two in the nest, I just can't. They're just a wee bit behind because there were four, but the second one, I lost the second one, so there's a bit of a space between the first one and the third one.
yeah.
But the light green cinnamon opaline hen is fantastic.
And the line in the feather on the opaline, are you controlling that? Are you worried about that?
Well, I have him the hen. That was one of the main reasons why I paired him to that particular hen because she is absolutely spotless clean, and her nestmates were spotless clean, and her parents were spotless clean. So I think obviously Alan carried quite a wide feather and quite a lot of heavily flecked birds, but I've been working to try to my best to eliminate that. Gone from heavy flecking. Now I'm just getting some of those lines and get maybe a fine sort of a tick. But it's one of those ones I have to put up with it to get those other
Yeah,
features, especially the mask and spot. So I'll just keep just chipping away at it until I get it away.
yeah. My birds turned up this black line about probably 2 years ago, and it is worrying because you get a really nice chick, and then you end up with these black lines. But yeah, it's and I mean I don't really know where it's come from because I have been so hard on birds I keep with faults.
Yeah.
Um, but
Uh, my thinking is that even some of the black lines come through, or it's got to be better than that bird being heavily flecked.
mm,
So it has to be a progression, surely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that opaline light green cock there. I mean that looks again a very different type of bird, but
Yeah,
looks big.
he is massive,
Yeah,
massive. He's actually quite young in that picture. So he would just be coming on around 10 months old now, starting to show a bit of interest in the hens in the flight. So
yeah,
fingers crossed.
yeah.
That's the hen just at the bottom of him is actually his mother.
Ah, right. Yeah, very nice.
Very, very stylish, nice, fine feathered.
Yeah.
So these are some of the cooks I brought from and hens I brought from Alan whenever he finished up. So the grey
Yeah.
cook is actually and the father of the previous young grey hen you were looking at.
Oh
That's
yeah.
that's the father, and the the grey green hen to the left at the top is the mother of the normal grey green pied hen.
Got very similar spot, haven't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
So the grey green cook there you see beside her is actually the hen that's paired to the other spangle. That
Right.
that the width of that bird's face is phenomenal. He's just recently lost his tail, so he has.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, but he is 2020. So I,
Yeah.
for me, regardless tail or not, he was absolutely coming here because where do you go to get a bird like that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I was my biggest step up when I was a beginner. Well, it was when it was back beginner, was some birds that Tony Cash gave me, and unfortunately, yeah, they had feather faults. But I have or I did gradually breed it out. So I know it's possible. You've just got to be
Yeah,
hard on yourself, hard on the birds, what you keep are in subsequent generations, and it's all possible. It's just I think sometimes people just think they can throw a couple of birds together, regardless of faults, and breed some wonderful bird. But
no, that's
you
it. Well, that,
know,
that grey green cock there that with the big face, that the grey green cock just
yeah,
to the bottom of him is his son, and then the grey green cock on the right of him is his grandson. So
oh, right,
that's what I mean about whenever I saw that family, I thought you got to take them all.
yeah,
So there's three generations there, and
yeah,
you can see a progression. That the one beside the grey cock, he's only a year old, so it's starting to come more into a nice showbird
yeah,
and complete. So
yeah,
it's
yeah. That's right. I mean, the fact that the 2020's dropped his tail, it, yeah, it's possibly an age thing, isn't it?
uh,
Not, you know.
definitely.
But
Yeah,
again, I mean that grey green cockbird in the bottom left corner, again, so different to the others.
yeah,
Brings something else to the team, doesn't it?
it does, and I think that's where the spangle feather, comes into it.
Yeah,
Him being a son of the grey green cock paired to a spangle from the same bloodline. So it seems to just put a finer touch on his feather rather than buff,
yeah,
more towards the yellow feather.
yeah. I think I think some of the bigger birds can carry the yellow feather really well,
Yeah,
aren't they? And I think, you sort of proved it here is, if you've got that size in your bird, the bigger spot, and then all of a sudden you get those sort of finer feathered birds, they do look really nice. You
yeah,
know, I'm not saying they're going to be best in show winners, but I think the days have gone of, all these buff birds. I think that, there's people still there trying to use them, but I think they are more limited now than they were, a
yeah.
few
It's
years ago.
yeah. I suppose when it comes to we're obviously all in this to breed showbirds, and whenever you look at the sort of expectations of the showbird, the first question, the first thing is condition.
Yeah,
And you're not going to get that without that yellow feather, you know, in pristine condition.
that's right.
And
That's
then
right.
obviously with style, stance, and deportment, you're not going to get that with those big, big, heavy birds as well. So it's a combination of the two things.
It's good stockman. That's what it is. It's a good stockman. Yeah, yeah,
So those are just one or two babies this year so far. My breeding season has been very slow this year. Um, I I only had a few pairs up because I'm just recently my mum hasn't been too well with vascular dementia, and
Oh,
I've been spending a bit of time there. So her and my dad are in their 80s. So, but those are the first few just out, and
yeah,
quite happy with them so far now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the sky blue. Yeah, the sky opaline sky. That's she's gonna have some blow, isn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
spangle, the light
Just
green.
when you
Yeah,
look at the spangle, the shoulders and the back skull,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Pied's the next step up as well, isn't it?
it is. And the young grey green to the very right of the screen
Yeah.
is the only young bird this year from the good grey green cock that won all the shows.
Oh, yeah,
I paired him to the pied hen, the grey green pied hen, because I felt she would have quite a buffy feather, but his is obviously yellow feathered, and so I
yeah,
put them together mainly to improve the spot because she's really good spot, and that's the result there. So I'm going to get a yellow feather type feathered,
yeah,
uh, great young grey green. It's going to have a lovely clean face. So we'll see how those spots come on.
yeah,
Either way, I'm not too worried because it's another one off him
yeah,
before I lost him.
yeah. That's right. And you can fold that back into the others, can't you?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because the opaline grey green hen on the previous slide will be his half sister. No,
right.
sorry, his niece, because she's bred off a brother to this young grey green here.
Yeah. So how close do you go pairing wise?
Well, at the minute, because I'm just building this line and using the basically the pyramid from the grey green cock and the grey green spangle cock, bringing them down. It and I have the grandfathers, the sons, and the grandsons. So mostly the pairs. If I look in the flight and see two birds together, obviously if they weren't brother and sister, everything's going to be first cousin to each other. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose, are you breeding your own out crosses in a way now?
Yes, because
Yeah,
any of the young birds that'll come off those first cousin parents that can then go back to the grandchildren or the grandparents.
right. Yeah. I've always been worried to go too close, but I did I think I hit a half sister, half brother this year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um
I
the
actually think that's quite a good parent, half brother and sister.
well it there was something just telling me I should try it, and there's another cinnamon sky in the nest box that I think will prove that it might have been a gut instinct that worked, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think would you take them if you'd done half brother and half sister the following year? Would you treat those chicks almost as a an outcross to outcross them?
Well, I the young birds from a half brother, half sister parent are effectively going to be like direct children from the original pair or
Yeah,
from the original, if you have a half brother and half sister, as I see from one particular, say, outstanding cockbird, and you want to double up in those features, so you're going to go with half brother, half sister. But those young birds of that pair, the half brother, half sister pair, will be in effect be as good as a son or daughter.
yeah,
So then I can take them across and put them into my pied line, which is, yes, the same marchant bloodline, but it just has something different.
yeah, yeah. Because I think if I was to do something that was distant, well, reasonably distant, I think I would probably go to my Spangles with this particular pair. Um, but I have got options that I've bred from the father to a different hen, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
you know, the father can be the prominent bit in it, but there is distant blood there. So, yeah, I mean, it is it's some of it's chance, but sometimes we make our own chance or our own luck, don't we?
yeah.
You know. Right, I think that was the end of that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So that was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It really, it's great to sort of um to see how the pairings, I think, is so important to understand, especially in the early days, because I was terrible for buying birds all over the place. You know, um, I bought because I got quite close related birds a couple of years ago. I actually did bring in from Alan and Gina this year, and went and got something fresh from um, David Wone. So yeah, it's I'm giving myself options, but it's which way I want to go, really.
yeah.
Okay, so we've got um, a little bit of your management side of things. So I'm hoping these are in order. So I
Okay.
think it was your soft food, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. So that's uh, obviously an egg biscuit food for the racing pigeons. It's optimal start 25% protein, which is quite good for a soft food.
Yeah, yeah, because
And
I think is that the one that's got egg biscuit
yeah,
and bits in? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I have tried that one before, but I don't know. I found it was very similar to other stuff I'd used, so I I I changed off of that one in the end. But now
Yeah,
these have intrigued me.
yes. So they're made by Gem, the, from Bartholomew's, the Gem seeds. Quite a lot, these are for racing pigeons. So they're a soya protein type pellet with lots of minerals and things through them. And I just put them in the blender and bring them down in the powder and add them to the mix. What I find with these, what I found with, I really wanted to use these because I used them with the racing pigeons, and the feather quality and the structure of the young birds in the nest bowls at the time, it was phenomenal. You know, it was the way they were leaving the nest. Such a good grounding to get them started in
Yeah,
life, and they were very, very strong. The feather quality was phenomenal, and I thought I'm going to try this with the budgies. And what I find feeding this is so whenever I have it in my soft food, but I also lift a small sprinkling of the pellets as they are and just sprinkle them over the top of their normal seed dish as well.
mm,
And they eat them very, very readily. But what I
yeah,
find is the young birds coming out of the nest box, they're very strong. They're absolutely feather perfect. And I
yeah,
think with the kind of size of the budgies we're breeding now, that extra wee bit of protein, you basically feed those feathers.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the feather quality in the nest is just phenomenal.
Oh, that's brilliant. And
So
they're readily available, are they? They're not anything.
no, they are readily available.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually I get them from Jam.
Mm,
I think they're sort of work out around £28 for 25 kilo bag.
yeah. Yeah. Because
But
I've been using the Garvo layers mash, the chicken food, but I'm just finding that there's some bits in there that they do waste. So, but
yeah,
yeah, I see that. Oh yeah, that's the two together, is it?
yeah. The reason I stick to those G10 pellets is because you're absolutely assured there are no growth hormones in
Yeah.
or any antibiotics as well.
Yeah.
And in lots of those layers mash, those layers pellets with the growth hormone, obviously they're for chickens and stuff, and they're force fed and forced to mature.
Yeah. The one
And
I've got is a basically just a. It hasn't got any of that in. I must admit, I did double check all of that.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, years ago there was a thing of feeding chick crumbs, wasn't there, with
yeah,
tricky powder in them and all of that. So Yeah. And is that do you do that as a 50-50 mix, do you?
Yes, fifty
Yeah.
fifty. That's just what I add to it.
And
So just up until I see the first egg, I use the 30 vit.
I was
And
just going to ask, how much of the 30-bit do you use? Because that can really send them over the edge,
wow,
can't it?
wow. Well, I learned very quickly.
Yeah.
So
I've,
up until I see the first egg, it's 30 vit and Calci-Lux powder. So into that mix, you see there's just two small scoops of the Calci-Lux. And
yeah.
then with the small spoon that's in the 30 vit, I put four of those in, very, very small. But once I see the first egg, then I put that away and move on to the OmniVit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's the vitamin E in 30-bit, isn't it? That's
yeah,
what sends them over the edge.
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all learned the hard way. Somebody,
I
you
think
know,
so.
all of a sudden you get this wonder drug and oops, I've got no chicks with heads.
What I found about it was the cockbirds were very, very keen to put the hen down. Again, they were getting into the box with the hen and
Yeah.
like hurrying her up.
Yeah.
That's the Fraser Boost pinhead oatmeal, which has the oils and stuff on, the wheat germ oils, salmon oils, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. The Fraser booths really have come into the hobby quite quickly, haven't they? I know
Yeah,
they went through a bit of a bad phase, but I think they've come through that now.
yeah,
Um, but there's an awful lot in the Fraser range, isn't there,
there
that
is.
could be used for birds. But obviously, I mean, I've learned the hard way as well. I went over the top, not just with the furtivit, but with adding a bit of this and a bit of that, and it was a right old mess. But
Yeah, yeah. Once you find that something that works, it doesn't need additives. I don't think.
no, no.
But that,
I think that's why I ended up with the Garvo, because when Kevin Eatwell, the avian vet, and I looked at it, we were sort of went, well, you've ticked that box, you've ticked that box. Yeah, okay, it's got that. Don't really need that, but it's there and it's not going to do any harm. And then we sort of ticked our way through it, and we were like, why would you feed anything else?
yeah.
You know, and you know,
But to that mixture you see in front of you there, the only moisture that gets in there is the carrot. There's no added water or anything like that.
right?
So it's just the carrot, and it's enough. It's
Yeah.
just because I can crumble it through my fingers, just like
Oh,
it's,
oh,
yeah,
yeah. On cue, although I didn't
yeah,
mean to press the button. But
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, I always aim for a really crumbly mix on mine. But
yeah,
what I like to do is make sure that stuff's stuck to the bits they like. You know,
yes.
the bits of carrot. I usually put a bit of Brussels sprout through as well, just for the greens. And yeah, just make sure everything sticks to it. And I think they eat that far better than too dry a mix. And mine won't eat
Absolutely.
too wet. Mine just won't eat wet food.
No,
So
that crumbles up exceptionally. The only other thing that's added to it are the groats, but I put the groats in a sieve and fill it up with hot water, well, hot enough to put your hand in. 5 minutes, just really, to give them a rinse, but also to soften the shell slightly,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
that's added to it.
yeah.
It's just the perfect amount of moisture.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is it. You know, you've got to find that balance that works for you and the birds, isn't it? You know, I found the balance was my pocket, um, but all of a sudden things clicked and it works. So works for us all. You know.
You know.
Um,
So I would make that up fresh daily. Just make
yeah,
enough. It took me a few weeks to work it out, and then I knew that it was, a large carrot and a half type thing, and then seven scoops of the egg food, seven scoops of the G10, that type of thing.
yeah. I'm very much the same now. Although I am starting to break pairs up now. I find I've got a little bit too much, but it's not. You know, not much, and they do devour it in the flight. So,
Yeah.
you know. Well, what's the time? Oh, we've been going 45 minutes, so we haven't done too bad.
No, we're doing
Um,
well.
so the show scene in Ireland, is there, can you show every weekend or,
There
you
are,
know,
yeah, well, we have shows in June. we have two shows in June, which would be the Northern Ireland Memorial, County Antrim Memorial, and then from sort of very late August through September, we would have uh, 4 or 5 open shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, then we usually break for the BS Club show, and after that, there's quite a lot of CBS shows.
Yeah.
So there are.
Yeah. I
I,
think
I
Andy came over from our club to judge one of the shows, didn't he?
Yes, that was the he gave my cinnamon hen in
Yeah.
those pictures best in show that day.
Yeah.
So he did.
Well, you made it too easy for him.
No, it was great having him over, and then we had the day at the show. It was great fun. He's
Yeah.
non-stop, and then we went out for a meal that evening, and it was a great night. Really was.
Good. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's a hobby at
Oh,
the end of the
definitely.
day.
That's it. There were I think there were about 10 of us went. And it was fantastic. Conversation around the table, great fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously you touched on it earlier, the movement of birds across the water. Has that changed again, or is it still
No, it
tricky?
hasn't changed. It's one of those ones. Whereas we we can apply for have a 5 bird certificate, but they must be vet checked at the premises where you're buying them from, and then a couple of different process of uploading them through DEFRA and things like that for
Yeah.
the inspections. Um, but you can only bring 5, but it is quite a process and it's expensive as well.
Yeah.
But we had some recent things on the news that there were being political changes here, but it didn't amount to anything. So that the restrictions are still in place.
Oh, what a shame. What a
We can
shame.
bring birds across from here to the UK, and just provided you can let them know that you're going to do that. But the coming back process is it's quite difficult if you wanted to go across and buy 4 or 5 pair. You know, you,
Yeah.
you'd have to probably make 2 trips or go with a friend who also has the permit,
Yeah. Yeah.
that type thing.
Yeah. Makes it a little bit more tricky, doesn't it? It really
It
does.
does, it does. They are very, very strict on it, and I suppose with bird flus and things, rightly so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the only thing it restricts on is, if you did breed that wonder bird here and wanted to take it to the club show or go in it or any of the UKBC
Mm.
shows, anything like that, you, you can take it across just by informing them that you're going across. But the coming back process could be quite difficult. Then it would require, even though it's your bird, going from one place inside the UK to another, it still has to be sort of an application made to transport that bird back.
Yeah.
So the trouble is,
Yeah.
they talk a lot about bird movement and birds in quarantine, but we don't actually have any quarantine stations here, and we can't even get any guidelines on what we need to build a quarantine station here.
Oh, wow.
So I think,
Yeah.
to be fair, I'm sure some of the staff are probably just as much in the dark as we are because regulations change regularly.
Mm.
But it can be done. It's quite a process. Really, really is
Yeah.
quite a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it means that if I came across to the club show with my birds, yeah, it it could probably work into birds being in show cages for 4 or 5 days, and it's not good.
No. No.
You
No.
know,
Even the best and even the best trained and the calmest birds, they get fed up in the end, don't they?
yeah,
They really do. Yeah. I mean, I'll be at our club show, UKBC show, that was the longest I'd had my birds in cages for. And that was only sort of what Friday through till Sunday, and
yeah,
you could tell by the end of it they'd had enough. And I purposely didn't take a couple of birds because they're not brilliant in a show
yeah.
cage anyway. I knew that wouldn't help them. So
But for me traveling across, I would have to, get the birds ready Friday, Thursday evening, Friday,
yeah,
the early hours of Friday morning, then take a drive to the port, then take the ferry, then drive from Scotland, Stranraer, all the way down to Doncaster.
Yeah.
And then they'll be there in show cages still Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then have to
Yeah.
do the whole process again. It's hundreds and hundreds of miles, and then ferries and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not easy. Not easy at
Yeah,
all.
you would hate the thoughts of getting the whole way there and open the cage to set it on, to present it at the bench, coming in the door and find that it has climbed all around the bars and pulled its tail out on the way through.
Yeah.
You'd be
Yeah.
disappointed.
Yeah. You definitely would. You definitely would.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think that's been brilliant, and thank you so much. It really is, like I said to you, before while we were setting this up, pairing up is something that, you know, even I find difficult to explain. Um, but I think that's given us an insight into, where you go with your pairs. Um, so yeah, so hopefully people will take a little bit away from this and just stand there for those extra few minutes, maybe
yeah.
get the paperwork out and
It's
just
it,
have
for
a
me,
look.
it's all about that. We all know what feature we need to improve on.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of, you know, when one doesn't have it, the other one must have it, surely.
Yeah.
But without losing too much of the other features.
That's right. It's not doubling up on the bad bits, but
Yeah,
introducing the good bits, isn't it?
that's it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And to be, and thankfully, it usually works. But I've had experience before when I've looked at two birds in a cage and thought, "Wow, surely anything they breed would be good." And then when the young birds leave the nest, you think,
yeah, yeah. I've done that. I've gone best to best, visually
"Oh,
best to best, and had probably one of the worst years I've ever had.
yeah."
It was awful.
Well, I have just introduced six new pair. I have the 12 cages, so I've just introduced six new pair. I know it's late, but
Oh yeah. I don't
they,
worry about it anymore.
no, to be honest, I felt they were ready. They showed me they were ready. They were pairing off in the flight, and I thought, well, if you're already paired off, should that you same bloodline. That's the beauty about having just all the one bloodline.
Yeah,
I don't have to really worry if they pair off in the flight, and as long as they're not brother and sister, well, they can come in.
yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
have a
That's
go.
good. Yeah,
I always I'm reminded of, back to Adrian when he bred the light green for the club show. And when he showed me a picture of the mother, I thought, not a chance. But it did. The
yeah,
bloodline kicked in.
yeah. That's
So
right.
it can happen.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, when I was back at the very start, one of the old boys told me, he says, don't forget, a visual chick is 50% hen, 50% cock. And if one of those parents is 50% rubbish, it's 50% rubbish. And I think that sort of set me in, and I think that now, even though we say I will breed with lesser hens, my hens actually now I do have a benchmark. It might be a lesser hen, but if it looks like a razor blade and it's got pin spots,
Yeah.
am I really going to use that?
Well, to
And
be honest, I think there's lesser and there's lesser.
yeah,
So and something I saw quite quickly at Alan's, and some of the hens, obviously with him when he graded them one, two, and three, so the
yeah,
ones were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
yeah,
But the twos done all the breeding.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's it. Yeah, I
I,
think I
I
think you're
brought
right.
quite a few of the hens I brought back when I first started were ones, and I did struggle.
Yeah,
Again, lack of experience. Someone with more experience than me, as we stand at the minute, I'm a second year beginner back at it.
yeah,
But someone with more experience than me maybe would have known what to do with those kind of hens. But they were phenomenal. But maybe I should have just brought their sister.
yeah. But they were the ones that other people have had paired up already, wouldn't they? Because that tends to be, well, I know I'll struggle with that, so I'll let that one go. But the sisters line them up.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
So some of those bigger birds were, I was getting ones and twos and three eggs type thing.
yeah,
But the finer sister, eight eggs. So I can. It's every day being a school day and just keep learning.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
So,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
but it has been quite challenging this year. But it's coming into nice weather now. Sure, where else would you like to spend an evening?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, my bird showed me they were ready back in October, which for me was just phenomenal. I'd never I haven't paired up that early in probably 10 years. You know, and I'd rung 47 chicks before Christmas.
Wow.
Just broke them up for over Christmas because what I did, it was the older birds that were looking fit, so I paired them up. Um, and then yeah, had a break over Christmas and started again in February, and I'm up to 80, 84, I think now.
So,
So I won't breed many more because I haven't got the room. You know,
yeah.
so yeah,
Well,
so
I have plenty of room, and I think one of the things I am going to change this year is absolutely not worry about a ring issue date because uh, with having such a small stud, when the birds are ready, they're going to come in regardless of the ring issue. Because I it means I can get the numbers and have more choice for the following year.
yeah, I think I think a few years ago I waited.
Yeah,
I had, you know, it wasn't necessarily the ring issue date, but I just waited, and some of the better hens had gone over,
yeah,
you know, and it was too late. They were, so yeah, I did learn quite quickly doing that. If they're shown, I mean, I've got young hens in the baby flight now that if I didn't know they were babies, you'd be catching them up and
yeah.
going, you must be ready. But, and they're only, well, yeah, before Christmas, and they're so sort of 5, 6 months old.
Yeah, but some of those, I two of those young cockbirds I have just now, they would be just well, they have a chick just hatched each of them. So
Yeah.
so they were going to be 6.5, 7 months. But when I checked, they had a full iris, and they were going daft in the flight with older hens, and I thought, you're obviously telling me you're ready.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
That's right.
but what I did notice about them when I did pair them up, both pairs had 6 eggs, but they missed the first 2 eggs.
Yeah.
So maybe that was them just getting into the hang of it. You
Yeah.
know,
That was the whining and dining period.
yeah, that's it.
Yes. Date
But
night.
that's it. But we'll see how they come on. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Yeah. That's
At least
right.
they're hatched, so that's
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's been one of my biggest problems. I was getting 8 eggs and 8 addled a few years ago. It was devastating, devastating. But we're coming through. I still get a few addled now and again, but
yeah,
I went out there tonight and, 2 chicks have hatched in the same box, and I'm thinking, how did that happen?
yeah.
That was the tail end ones, not the first few.
That's
So,
it. I had an occasion just recently, and I've just fostered a hen had 6 eggs and hatched the first three successfully. And I thought it was quite a period then. And I was just cleaning up. It came to Sunday, and I was like, just going to clean the boxes out and just fresh shavings and dump the old eggs and put in a couple of plastic eggs just to keep the young birds warm.
yeah,
And I noticed when I opened it that the other two had hatched, and they just hatched that night before, the day before. But the other ones were already had they were at ringing stage, so they had rings on.
mm,
And I thought, oh, that's could have been a close one.
yeah,
But you just think the eggs are dirty, they're old. But that's happened to me a couple of times this year.
yeah, yeah.
But
I tend to be, I get myself in a right muddle if I don't I've got an app on my phone, and tonight, funny enough, was the first night I got confused on whether I had 2 chicks hatch and I hadn't done the app, as in marking it as hatched or not. But I find now that I'll move chicks once they're rung and
yeah,
try and even the nests up.
yeah,
But that's been actually a good problem this year is I've had nowhere to move stuff,
yeah.
because I've got, already got fours and a couple of fives, which I don't normally like to do. But
I I think if we get the kind of birds we breed now, I think a healthy nest, a successful nest, is a nest of three.
yeah, yeah,
It's enough.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know,
Definitely.
so if I have ones and twos and things like that. Once I get them past ringing and start feather, I'll sort of shift them about a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think it's manageable for the type of birds we have now. If there
I
were
think
two, three,
I think you start to see signs in the chicks, don't you? Just that slightly dehydrated look sometimes if the hen's struggling. And yeah, I think I'm learning that now, and my way may well drop to 3, 4 maximum chicks.
yeah,
But I don't put fosters up, and I'm sure you don't either.
yeah,
But what I will do is use clear nests on trusted hens.
yes,
So, I mean, I run 20 cages. So, if I've got all 20 up, and it makes things a little bit easier. But yeah, right. Well, I think we'll leave it there, Andy. And I think we've set it up for perhaps a catch up in a few months' time and
yeah,
see where you are with those bar heads, because some of those look phenomenal.
yeah,
Um,
certainly.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
we may bump into each other one day.
Yeah, definitely.
Lovely. Thank you
Okay
very
then.
much. Cheers,
Thank you
then.
very much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.